Fools, demons, and fellow weird ones. So now we're gonna have a story time. I haven't done a story time in a minute, so I just want to answer a few questions that have been circulating in a variety of mediums. I want to address them. So we're gonna talk about where I get my outfits from. I have very recently, over this last year, started doing the outfit of the days. I always dress up. I love dressing up for special occasions and events, and I piece together a whole outfit. I've always been a fashion girly. When I was younger, I really wanted to be a fashion designer, and I went through a phase where I was really trying to do that. And I would love to do that again. That is one of my goals, is to fulfill that skill set building of designing clothes. And in the meantime, I'm back into designing outfits or piecing outfits together and really buying clothes that make me feel really good. So to kind of, I guess, do the story time and give some background information, is some people might feel like seeing me like this is a shock, especially depending on what phase of my life you met me in. But if I could go back to the very beginning of when I was a really little girl, I was always really girly, really prissy. Love fashion, Little Miss Elle Woods, Little Miss Cher, whether it's from Clueless or the iconic singer. I was just a diva. Britney Spears, loved her growing up. I was quite the eclectic kid. Like I am to this day, quite the eclectic person. So I love like 80s glam metal and like Alice Cooper and a lot of that classic rock. That's what my mom listened to. But then I was still like a product of my generation in like the the late 90s, early 2000s, and I'm definitely a diva. But I kind of outgrew that for a variety of reasons. There's a lot of shame about being super girly, super prissy, being a princess, a Barbie, and I wanted to run away from that identity as far as I could go and at my own expense, because I was tired of people belittling me, making fun of me, and putting me down, I guess. I mean, it started at a very young age, and I started to really kind of shift in how I express myself. Also, we couldn't really afford for me to like dress the way that I wanted to growing up. So that was like a thing, and it was a lot. Like I had to focus my money on buying quantity, not quality, or like I just needed enough clothes to get me through the season or the school year or this or that. So it wasn't really much about getting a couple pieces that I really, really liked. It was about survival, essentially. And so it's kind of interesting how all of these different principles and experiences get rooted into our state of being in a state of survival. And then, I had to start buying my own clothes. If I really wanted something, I had to buy it myself. And then I kind of got trapped in that, well, I'm going to get as much of what I want as I can. And so, I shopped at Ross and TJ Maxx. I didn't really do thrifting. I didn't really know about it. And I also there was a stigma about it being dirty to like buy clothes that were, I'm like, well, even if you wash it, and like, it kind of didn't make sense to me, but there was that stigma growing up, and for everybody, like society, it wasn't just like my family. I don't want even it wasn't just from one place. It was just kind of this idea that like, not that it was also dirty, like I don't also want it, that was part of it. The other part of it was that like we didn't need it because there were people worse off than us. There's always somebody worse off than us, and therefore like what we were going through didn't matter. So even though we were struggling and we could have benefited from going to like a Goodwill or a thrift store to get different, better clothes, better price point. There was a lot of pride in my family. I will admit that. And so it became this whole entanglement of clothing and dressing. And then I also started wanting to express myself more, and I wanted to be more alternative, but like really girly alternative. I remember when I very first started, it was a lot of Hot Topic. It was a lot of fishnet gloves and bracelets, but I would put glitter glue on things. I wanted it to shine. I wanted it to sparkle. I wanted it to be a gothic Barbie, which for those who know, if you know, you know, I was Death Metal Barbie on Instagram for a while. That was one of my first modeling personas and whatever else. And that had a more like edgy, still a more masculine expression, I would say, which is kind of funny because it was like if I was a hardcore scene metal girl, how would I dress? And so it still wasn't as like hyper feminine as I know I am at my core and how I've kind of evolved. So the fashion sense really came out. But I remember like 4th and 5th grade, I really wanted it to be beautiful and gothic at the same time. So very Morticia, very like vampire, very Evanescence. But that wasn't like quite attainable. There's so much wrapped up in like me trying to express myself and also make everybody around me happy and not upsetting people just for how I wanted to dress. My style was an issue for a variety of people, for a variety of reasons, in a variety of ways. And so it became a struggle. And then I just got to a point where I was just wearing like band tees and jeans. And then the jeans even became a problem because they were ripped jeans. I remember that being a fucking issue. And it was so stupid. Like, it just seemed like I couldn't fucking win. A lot of my stories and a lot of my themes, now I hate talking about it because I don't want to sound like a victim in any of it. But it just really seemed like I could not fucking win no matter what I did. It was always, people were always upset. And it always reminded me there's a book I read all the time. I can't remember the name of the book. It was a children's book. And it was about this girl who, she wore her hair up in a ponytail. And everyone made fun of her. So then she changed her hairstyle and wore her ponytail in a different direction. Well, the day that she changed her ponytail, then everyone had the regular ponytail, and then everyone made fun of her for how stupid her new ponytail was, and then they copied her, but everyone was always ridiculing her first and then copying her next. And that has been a theme in my life. It's very Aquarius, very Leo moon, I feel. The astrology side of it really makes sense, and coming to these conclusions that it doesn't matter. It'll never be enough. You'll never please everyone. You'll never be perfect. You'll never achieve a level of success. You'll never please everybody. They will always make fun of you. They will always copy you one way or another. You can't control it. Let it go and just be. And just do what really fills your cup, ignites your flame. And it took a lot of clearing out what voice was mine because like I got so entangled for all of these reasons and I kind of lost my sense of self-expression, not just my sense of, like, not just myself, but my sense of self-expression. Like, I had parts of me that were genuine and then parts of me that were a protective barrier to it. And so then I went through a really, an ugly phase. COVID happened, the world shut down. So many different things happened in my life at that time. And then I met my husband and I just got into a really nice cocoon phase. And I've been dressed in his sweats. A lot of my early TikTok videos, people really saw that. Like I wasn't really wearing my own clothes. I got rid of a lot of my own clothes. And then I was in a phase where I couldn't really afford to rebuild my closet. Like, again, just a huge transition phase. Like these don't fit, like literally physically did not fit me anymore, but then aesthetically didn't quite fit me. And I was so lost and I just wanted to be myself again. But I had to, and so my husband gave me his old clothes. He probably donated clothes to me that he didn't want to get rid of, or we would share, but he made sure I stayed comfortable in all of his band t-shirts and all of his sweatpants. And he bought me a few things that were more feminine or girly or my size, and you know, all of the things. And he took me to so many thrift stores, and then it was funny to me how he just encouraged me one day when I was looking for glass. You didn't buy clothes at thrift stores. Like it kind of was amazing to me that was even something in my psyche, like at all. But he was like, why don't you go look at clothes? Like, you like vintage clothes? And I was like, it just kind of became like he gave me permission. And I didn't need it, but I did, because the fact that he granted me permission, he wasn't granting me permission to buy the clothes or to look at the clothes there. He was giving me permission to be myself. The entire time I've been with my husband, he's given me permission to be myself. And he hasn't cared what that has looked like and how many times it's changed and evolved over the last 5 years. I'm sure it's been quite the journey for him as I've untangled myself with his support. He is the mountain that I have rested upon, and he's given me all the security in the world for me to transform. And so from there, which is where I think people are kind of surprised, like, oh, like, who is she? Or look at the evolution. Oh, the glamour magic works. One of the biggest things about glamour magic is that the best form of glamour magic is finding things that make you happy. It makes me happy. I love wearing dresses. I love wearing jewelry. I love my hair being done. I got to a point where I thought I had to do those things, and so then I rebelled against them and rejected them because it became something I had to do or I wasn't pretty. So then I had to prove that I was pretty without anything. I had to prove I was pretty without makeup, without my hair done, in ugly sweats. Like I just had to prove that it doesn't matter what I fucking do. These things don't make me beautiful. I make me beautiful. And all the glamour magic in the world won't make you beautiful until you come to that conclusion that you're beautiful who you are. And the things that light you up is what enhances your aura. So it's not just like what you think glamour magic looks like. It's not just intentionally lining up. Like I talked a lot in my other videos about intentionally setting things up. Like I don't know, what did I fucking say? Oh, like, washing your hair on certain days or putting certain oils on certain days, certain fragrances like that enhance things, but also not just that, making sure you like it, making sure it fits your aesthetic. We're in a material world. One of the best quotes from Madonna is that you can be a spiritual person and still shop at Prada. And I think that goes into a state of balance, right? Like we're in Libra season, so we're all the Venetian messages at this time. So there's a balance to it. I think the world is off balance with some of the fast fashion and the mass production and the exploitation and the slavery that goes in the fashion industry. And I think that we need to be more intentional about what we pour into when it comes to businesses, especially Americans who kind of seem to be blind from where we get all of our mass-produced things and how you can have 50,000 of the same fucking shirt across the globe. Like, it's insane. So I do think that there is a space for the resellers, and like I buy some things brand new and then I don't buy other things brand new. I think I found that balance of it, because if you like something and you want something and you invest in it, you're going to wear the hell out of it. I don't see anything wrong with you buying it, whether it's from Target or Prada or a thrift store. I don't care. If you love it, you're going to wear it. Awesome. Even if it's only around for a season. But I do think that if you buy something, you don't just throw it away. And that's the thing, like, that I hate and I try to talk out against as someone who has lived in poor areas and then lived in near rich areas and seen the rich areas and have rummaged through enough dumpsters as a little gremlin that I am. Rich people just throw away things, still with the tags on it. They never wore it. They just bought it for a status symbol. I think that is the dark side of glamour magic, is buying things for the state of status, not because you genuinely love it and it makes you feel good inside. So that's where I start to come from with like my fashion. Is I want things that make me feel good. And I've had to really kind of sit with and think about what that is and what is even mine. What's an influence from society? What's an influence from my mother? What's an influence from my generation? Am I being trendy? Because I am like an alternative goth girl, do I feel like I have to constantly play a part? Because there are people who have ridiculed me. Fucking, you know who I'm fucking talking about like not being goth enough, or not being alternative enough, or not being this enough. And it's like, I'm me, I'm eclectic, and some days I'm sporty, some days I'm really girly and princessy, some days I'm a Victorian goddess, some days I'm a hippie. Like, I just kind of go with whatever I feel, and I think that people are too diverse to be put in too many boxes and cliques, and again, you're expressing yourself, not boxing yourself. And so these are all the things I think about when it comes to fashion, what I've really learned. And now, like I said, I dress for myself. And when I need to dress down or protect myself, it's back into my husband's clothes that I go, because that is the most secure place that I could ever be. And so that leads into, where do I get this stuff? Some thrift stores, like, depending where I lived. So some of my stuff is from Michigan, and now I'm in Nashville, so some of it's from here. But I have met some amazing, amazing, amazing resellers and future well, they are designers, but I think that they're going to be big. And so with that, that's where I have found things. So like my Instagram is where I really tag a lot of people, and you'll really see things. So if you're really curious, go to my Instagram. I kind of look at my followers or who I post about. Like I'm very loud about who I support. And then there are people on my Wyrd community page, which is forever growing. A lot of people I work with, they are newer brands or newer businesses, newer artists who are putting themselves out there in a new way. So of course, I'm still waiting for some people to get their branding stuff together for me to put them on the website and all of those little things. So it depends on what time you watch this on how many people are going to be there. But Instagram is also a really good way to see people. But Whipshine Vintage, I Heard Vintage, 2 Street 2 Vintage, I believe. I could be fucking that up. I tried practicing before I recorded, and the membrane system is delayed. And then there's my girl Natasha, who she has some like vintage stuff, and her friends. That I forget their names, but they were with her. A lot of these people at the Nashville Flea Market, so you find some really good treasures there. So the designer Dead Threads by Sid, she designs some really cool stuff, and I'm always on the hunt for things. Was it Anaconda is like a vintage reseller here in Nashville. But I try to go to thrift stores, I try to go to resellers, and intentionally pick and choose what it is that I buy. I mean, like I said, if I really, really like something and I know I'm gonna wear the hell out of it, I will buy from a brand. I think that we have to be honest with ourselves and the world that we're in. I think it's extremes that are terrible. I think if you get too far in the reseller side of things, that can be harmful in its own ways, as we're seeing how everything gets exploited and corrupted somehow. Unfortunately, it's a shame that it is, but I think, especially particularly at this time and age that we're in, a lot of the shadow sides of everything are really being known for, I think, for us to, I don't want to say police, but for us to monitor and fix and evolve and heal. I hope the point is healing. I don't like policing. I think we should get away from policing. I think we should focus on healing. So it is calling people out for exploiting certain industries, but doing so in a way that doesn't alienate them and push them further into villainizing themselves and all of those things, but healing them so they, I guess, want to do better in whatever way that looks. But again, I think there's a balance to it. And same with the far corporate side of things. I mean, it's there if you don't, to an extent, if you don't buy it, then it goes in the landfill. So it's like, well, at least someone may as well buy it, and someone may as well use it before it goes to the landfill, but don't just buy it to save it from the landfill, because it might still end up there anyway. Like, these are problems bigger than us. And so I always tell people, just do the best you can and be intentional about it. And so that's where my fashion comes from. Jewelry I try to get from like handmade local people if I can, or not just local, but people I meet at events or social media or wherever it is that I go. But I try to support the individual and the person who is doing something from a state of passion. I do have some people who are resellers from, like they max buy the crystal jewelry and they resell it. It's because like I like them as people. I like them as people, and that is their own version of a business. I probably would buy more from someone who does handmade stuff than someone who does like mass produced things, but I also know that those resellers are also small businesses, and if it, you can only have so much integrity when supporting people, and I think that people, they get too judgmental in their head about it. When I just want to support humans who are just trying to make a living and live their lives to the best that they can. So if you're a good person and you're doing something that isn't overly harmful or harmful in a way that's in your control, ultimately, we're all victims of something. We're all corrupt to some degree. We're all parts of the machine to some extent. I think it takes small intentional baby steps to redirect it. And I think part of that is by sharing the message, but then also supporting the small businesses more than the corporations, even if it is ultimately a pyramid trickle down system. But if I can put food on the table for a small business, I will regardless. So even if it's Temu resales, I think you can only try so hard not to support that, you know, to an extent. I'll call it out. But sometimes you get duped too. There have been times where I didn't realize because people are getting real tricky about it now. So that's my message. Do your best. Don't overthink it. But if you want to know who and what I support and where I get all these cool outfits, I get pieces and I put them together, or some outfits I bought in whole. But my girl Marissa at Windshine Vintage is where I've gotten a lot of my newer pieces. She's a fellow Aquarius, so we definitely align. My girl Natasha, I've gotten quite a few things from them. And yeah, there's another place like Enchanted Disco, I think is another one. But yeah, they're all on my Instagram. I should have had a better list before I started doing this. But I was like, oh, record, let's go. So yeah, so that's how I keep in touch with everything. TikTok, sometimes I'll tag people and stuff. That's mainly where I create the video. And then Instagram is where I tag the people. It's just because of how easy the apps are to do all of that. I have weird systems and weird rules for weird reasons that don't make sense to anyone but me on the process of how I do everything. But I do try to get the information out there. But is my story time on my outfits and where I get things and how I plan on building my closet for the future is now I'm making sure I don't just get things because I need them. I get things because I genuinely like them and I'm genuinely going to use them until they disintegrate or until they are ready for someone else to love and enjoy. Who am I to control the life cycles of everything? But just like I think my candles are alive and everything's alive, I do believe the spirit of clothes are alive. And I think that they go through their own seasons and cycles in life and death, just like anyone or anything. So I think if we can be more intentional in everything and kind of treat everything as if it's alive, I think that that's a really good start in healing and solving the problem that is the entire capitalistic industry. So with that, much love, and I'll talk to you later.